What is one thing that every father should teach his son about being a man?
Respect women.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that if we understand the nature of manhood, the way I think we should understand it, men have, I think, an obligation, a responsibility, but also an opportunity to create a world and culture of safety and security and flourishing for women. Whether it's your mother, whether it's your sisters, whether it's your friends, whether it's a girl you might be interested in, a girl might be interested in you, somebody in your workplace, somebody at school, whatever it is. What does respect look like? It'll feel foreign to many women because men are often scared of women, intimidated by women, or they're predatory toward women. To be able to have a mature relationship where you're colleagues, and you're not competing, and there's no unnecessary struggle with that. Is I think good for a man to learn, good for a young boy to learn, and I think it goes to the essence of leadership. It's leadership, according to the Bible, is inherently sacrificial. Mm-hmm. It's not authoritative. In the Bible, a leader has enough authority to carry out the responsibility they've been given, mm-hmm. but no more. And if you exceed with your authority the responsibility that you have, then now you're oppressive. Mm-hmm. And so understanding the nature of and responsibility means at some point somebody's going to have to take responsibility. Somebody's going to have to be accountable. Leadership in the Bible is inherently accountable. It's I am accountable to this, so I need to act in such a way as the best interests of this situation, this person, this relationship. That's what I'm giving myself to. Mm. It's the guy who's like, okay, what do we need to do to get better? I'm going to lead. I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to exhort. I'm going to encourage guys. I'm going to, you see guys like that in pro sports. It's attractive. Guys who are like, this guy's a team guy. Mm-hmm. He may be the best player, but he doesn't act like it. Mm. He's not a prima donna. He's not a, it's about me. He's a what needs to be done. Those kind of guys.
Sounds like you're saying then that a core thing that fathers should teach sons is humility.
Yeah, humility. It's ultimately humble. Yeah, I think humility is the goal, but it has a shape to it. Mm-hmm. for young men. Mm-hmm. Arrogance is cancerous to a young man. Mm. I always feel like, okay, I don't need to make you humble. God will do that. Right? I just think I can give you a path that's less problematic than God will give you if you ask him to do the job, because he's going to be ruthless in it. He will pound you. And that's where you get guys who, because they never learn the lesson, they get offended with God and they just become fools.
What's a mistake that you see a lot of fathers making right now?
The phone for your generation is death to family. If people don't have a conscientious, aggressive approach to controlling phone, I think they're going to mail in their parenting, and they're going to teach their kids how to mail in life. Whether you're working or whether you're exercising or whether you're with your wife or you're with your kids or with other people, learning the art of being all there where you are, I think is crucial. And I think it's really crucial with kids. I got to be all here. Once I enter in, I got to be all in. And I got to be all in as long as they want me to be all in.
How do I not be an angry father?
God puts kids in your life to push your buttons. They are his gift to you to make you different. And, anger with kids is one of the most selfish kinds of anger that you can have, because they don't know better. right? They're just in your way. Whatever you want to do at that moment or whatever you want to feel at that moment, they're just in your way. It's about as selfish as a person can be. So I think as a father, we just have to recognize we can never justify anger with our children.
What is one habit that every man should develop before he's 30 years old?
Exercise. You're not exactly seeing the total benefits here, but
what about something like from an emotional maturity perspective?
That's emotional.
Yeah.
I believe in reading. Like, I think you need to be able to read and read things that challenge you. I think reading comprehension really drops off after college for a lot of people. They just don't do it. And so, yeah, to be able to say, can I tackle a tough book? Can I follow an argument all the way through? Can I debate a book? One of the hard parts about doing, like, getting things through podcasts and stuff like that, which I'm not against podcasts, is you're not really debating it. But sit there for an hour and struggle with what a guy's saying or Arthur's saying, and what do I do with this? How do I handle this? Do I agree with this? How would I counter argue? Those are skills that you need throughout life that I think a lot of people aren't getting because they're just not reading these days.
Why should men read history books?
We're still doing history. I mean, we're making history and we're living out of the history that's come before us. And you're foolish if you think that yeah, you know what? It's all new. We're all it. Without history, you sort of think you're it. And history reminds you, no, you're not it. There are people come before you. They've made mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes they make. Benefit from their wisdom, from their folly, and just understand where you come from. You didn't just drop into this earth from nowhere. You're at a point in time and know the stream of life you're in. It just makes you think about the bigger picture. You get to know, well, if this happened here and this happened here, and these people obviously knew that this was going on when they were doing this, how did that affect them? How did that make them make the choices they were making?
What's the difference between knowing about God and knowing God?
The Christian believes that you only know God if he reveals himself to you, ultimately in the person of Jesus Christ. But we can know a lot of information about God. People do know a lot of information about God. You can read the Bible and get information about God. But to know God is to know him relationally, to know him the way he's disclosed himself to us. God has made himself known. My whole experience as a Christian has been God's initiative toward me, not my initiative toward God. I had no interest at all in God. God had to seek me out. Ultimately, he seeks everybody out, but he had to seek me out, and he found me. I didn't find him.
What were you before you were a Christian?
I was a Marxist. I was an atheist Marxist. And so...
what does that mean?
In college, I embraced Marxism as my frame of reference for life. Marxists basically believe that people are inherently, if not good, they're benign. And it's the systems around them that create the problems. And if you can return their ability to control the world around them through their systems, then they can flourish. And so that's what I believe. I believe the problems are all out there. They're not in here. And so I was very content, happy. I was not struggling. And Marxists by definition don't believe in God at all. The famous quote, Karl Marx, religion is, and this is a paraphrase, the opiate of the masses. It is the thing that the oppressors use to keep the masses from realizing that they are oppressed. So that was my view. Religion had nothing good to offer. In fact, it was the source of most problems in people's lives, and so I'd rejected it, and I rejected the concept of God. And so I was living my life that way, and it was just sort of a sequence of events over about a year or two where I actually didn't believe in God, but I began to not even question, I began to be convinced that there was something in me that was morally askew, that was wrong, that was corrupted to the core, that I could fake decent morality, but I really didn't live it. My life was characterized by terrible moral choices and unconcerned about the effect of those choices on others. And most of the people I was with were doing that. We were not bad people on the surface. You would not put us in the bad camp, but if you watched how we lived their lives, how we made our choices, what we did, you'd recognize these people. They're driven by self. They're driven by who I am and what I want to be. And if you are in the way, or I can use you to get where I want to go, that's what I do.
Right.
And then you would rationalize it, or medicate it with drugs and alcohol. So that settled in on me that I was a fake. I was, the outward moral me that I wanted to be respected was really just a creation of my own attempts to try to not deal with who I really was. Really, it was just one night. I mean, the way I tell people, it was February 10th, 1981. It was about 3 a.m. I was talking to someone, and my mind to be a Christian, all Americans are Christians because America is Christian. So aren't we all Christians? And they said, nah. This sort of means you're a Christian. You're not one. And which kind of offended me a bit. I'm like, hey, no, I can be a Marxist and be a Christian and not believe in God and be a Christian because that's cultural. And no, can't do it. And so over the course of the night, it began to weigh more heavily on me. And I tell people about 3:44 a.m. on February 10th, 1981, I was a Marxist atheist. 3:45 a.m. February 10th, 1981, I was a believer in Jesus Christ. Had never thought about that. But at that moment, I would say, getting back to your question, Jesus made himself known to me. He entered my life as a person, tangibly, and changed my heart. And I knew my heart was changed. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, game's changed. I'm a different person. There was now a deep sense of gratefulness for the grace of God and the mercy of God, because not everybody who I ran with survived. Some died, some wound up in prison, some just had difficult lives. God has spared me. And when you live that way, you start to realize, okay, Lord, I need to live. I never felt compelled. I got to be a good Christian. To me, it's all about, this is a life of gratefulness. It's a life of, I want to get to know Jesus better. Mm-hmm. And I want to find ways to live in this world that reflect well on him. And so that's kind of been my creed since that time. Never really looked back.
Do you think the average churchgoer knows God?
If you're committed to going to church, you're going for a reason. What is that reason? Is that reason because I can earn points with God? Then I don't think you know God. Is that reason because I feel guilty if I don't go? I don't think you really know God, at least the way he wants to be known by you. I'm going because I feel pressure, because I have a ministry I want to do. I'm a pastor. I need to do this. That's not the signs of knowing God. The signs of knowing God is I want to live my life for him. I want to gather with other people who have that same desire and passion. And I want to do this on mission together. Those people know God. Doesn't mean they're perfect. Doesn't mean that they don't have struggles. Doesn't mean don't have serious questions. We all have serious questions. But people who know God want to follow God, and they want to do that with other people who are sincerely following God. Jesus Christ, not just God. God generically isn't the answer. It's Jesus Christ, God revealed in the flesh, come to save.
How much has changed in your beliefs over the past, almost 40 years of being a Christian?
I don't think a ton's changed because I think I was pretty well taught early on. I think what grew in depth was a confidence in what I would call Reformed theology, which simply means a confidence that at the end of it all, the way Spurgeon talked about it, no matter what you think about what God's role is and what your role is in salvation and growth, at the end of it all, at the bottom of it all, you have to say, but God, right? And so what I learned fairly early on was whether I've got to put effort in, I've got to work at this. I can't just kind of mail it in. I've got to. There's commands in Scripture I need to be conscious of, try to follow. There's promises I need to believe. There's things that I do, but at the bottom of it all has to be but God, but God being rich in mercy, but God who made himself known to us, but God who is the sovereign Lord of all the universe. It's that confidence that I'm going to, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to fall short in so many ways. I'm going to sin, but God is not pushed away by my sin. God comes close. God forgives. And so the power of forgiveness and the recognition that at the end, at underneath it all, but God has been kind of always there for me. And I never had a problem with it.
If someone is listening to this and they are ambiguous about faith,
Sure.
What is something that you would want those people to know?
Yeah. Well, man, there's so many things. One is that I don't think anybody is ambivalent toward faith. I just don't think people always recognize what they're putting their faith in. Right? Faith is a function of humanity. We trust things that we can't control. It might look religious, but it doesn't always look religious. I can trust money. I can trust people. I can trust my own skills. I can trust my education. We all trust something. We always put faith in something. So I think that when I encounter somebody who says, I don't believe in faith, I think you just don't analyze yourself well. You've got a lot more faith. That very statement is a faith statement, right? It says a lot about your faith. So if I'm in a conversation with somebody, I'm recognizing whether you formalize it or not. No, we all put faith in something. So then the question is, what do we put faith in? And is it worth putting faith in? And so then I would talk about, well, there's a lot of things to put faith in. There's religions, there's spiritualities. You really need, but if you're going to do it, don't do it because it works. Because right now it works for me, because it may not always work. Do it because the substance of it is worth putting faith in. And this is what I'll tell people if I'm talking to them. These are people who don't profess Christ. I want to be up front, right off the bat. What I believe is crazy. If you actually put what I believe down on paper and you say, I believe that a man who historically died didn't stay dead, and that he's now eternally Lord of all, and he talks to me, and he relates to me, and he guides me, and he is working in all of the world, and he is my friend. When I'm talking to people about faith, I don't want to introduce Christianity. I want to introduce my friend Jesus. To introduce my friend Jesus, I have to acknowledge that what I believe to you right now is nuts. Let's just be honest. It's nuts, because I'm not going to back off the fact that Jesus is real and that he's here. And we're having this conversation right now. He's here. Are you comfortable with that? Now you can tell me I think you're nuts, and I think that's fine. I'm fine with that, right? But I think let's have an honest conversation about what we really believe. What I believe you should find bizarre. The world has always found it bizarre. And so we start, particularly in a secular world, with what Christians believe shouldn't make sense. It's not the wisdom of the world. It's what the world calls foolishness. That's what Paul says in Corinthians. It's what the world calls foolishness. For us to have an honest conversation about issues of faith, we need to start with the fact that you probably, in your frame of reference, should think what I think is foolish. And then let's talk. So that's how I would start the conversation. I might not be that abrupt about it, but that's where I'm going to. Let's get the field level.
Is there something about the character of God that someone that is passive about faith should know?
God's not passive. He's not passive about you. He has a will and he cares. God's not a duality. He is both eternally sovereign and righteous and eternally loving, which means you can't set the terms of your relationship with him. You can deny him, but you can't change him.
What's the difference between religion and relationship?
Well, religion is just how we practice what we believe. It's also can be understood as the orderly account of what we believe. I believe this. This is my religion, and I practice it this way. Relationship is kind of, some Muslims would disagree with this, but relationship with God is inherently a Christian idea. Muslims will talk about it because they draw from the Old Testament and they understand that God had relationship because they use the same Old Testament we do. He had relationship with his people. But I think to be a Christian, because of Jesus Christ, relationship is the whole point. The whole point of Christianity is a relationship with God. God said, I will be your God. You will be my people. The end of all things is God with his people, God making his home with them and their home is with him. It's very familial. It's inherently relational. That's the end of all things. That's the end of Revelation. So to be a Christian is to understand this is all about relationship. God is my Father. Jesus is my elder brother. Fellow believers are brothers and sisters. And so relationship is how we function. It's how I pray. I don't pray to a distant God. I pray to my Father. I don't worship Jesus as a distant prophet. He's a present help in times of trouble.
What's one thing that God's taught you that you couldn't learn from the sermon?
What kind of sinner in specific I really am? A sermon will generalize the kind of sinner you are, and also, God's mercy and grace for that. But self-knowledge for the Christian is knowing particularly how you tend to want to create your life and your world in your own image. There are particular ways I want to do that. I can find all that described in Scripture, but to particularize it and say, well, Andy, this is your particular struggle to grow in holiness and righteousness and love. The sermon won't deliver me that. That sermon is a live experience where God promises to be there. And so I will have experiences in a sermon where I realize God is speaking to me. There are times in my life I can point to where I'm like, I don't know what he was talking about, but that was for me right there. And I want to have more of those times. I don't want to be evaluating sermons. I want to encounter God in the midst of the preaching, which is, I think, the reason why I think it can be dangerous for Christians to consider not gathering together with the saints in the preached word in a local church to be a long-term damage to their soul, because they won't have those experiences. Then they're just taking it as content.
What would you say to me if I love God but I hate the church?
Well, you're the church. What to say about you?
Let's just say not me, specific.
You hate everybody but you.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that says a lot about you, doesn't it?
What would you say to someone that loves God but hates the church?
Maybe you've had bad experiences. I get it. I mean, I think if you're in any church for any length of time, you're going to have bad experiences. If you're thinking the way of getting through life is to avoid bad relational experiences, then you're going to live alone. You know, no relationship is going to, and the way God uses the pain and the conflict and the challenges is part of your growth. He doesn't promise you, okay, we're going to get you to look more like Jesus without any pain. If you go to any place in the developing world, particularly where the Christians are persecuted, these people are the church. I don't have options. I got to make it work here. So I think it's very consumeristic. I want to be careful not to condemn somebody who feels hurt by the church and who has legitimate reasons to struggle with it. But the concept of I can hate the church and not do anything about that leads you away from the Bible. It leads you away from everything Jesus intends for your ultimate spiritual good.
What would you say to someone that says they've never heard from God? Where would they go to find him?
Well, it's in the Word. You know, he's always speaking in the Word. The Word is him speaking. The Bible is God's self-revelation of himself and his will and and what he wants us to do. So the first place I would say is, well, are you reading your Bible? Right? If you're not reading your Bible, and it's best to read it consistently, because it's like any reading, you have to get your brain and your heart ultimately into a posture where you can let the words speak to you. You're not speaking to the words. This has to speak to me. I live with all my thoughts. This has to invade my thoughts.
What's the 5-5-5 rule?
5-5-5 rule is something I basically applied to myself because I was terrible with church with spiritual disciplines for a number of years. I was sporadic and lazy and everything else you can be to have lousy spiritual disciplines. I was. And so I just started to realize, all the plans that weren't working. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to start from scratch, and I'm going to try to do 5 minutes of devotions. Because I was kind of all or nothing. Like I would be like, I've got a 2-hour, devotional time today. It was great. And then I wouldn't do something for like a week and a half. And so I want to read. I want to be in devotion. I want to be in a quiet time for 5 minutes for 5 days a week for 5 weeks. Let's just see what happens. I just want. So I committed. I gave myself 2 cheat days, right? And 5 minutes is like nothing, right? I mean, it is for some people. It's huge to break down. If you're like out of bed, Pop-Tart, go. Finding 5 minutes for the Bible can be really hard. I get that. If you're a parent with young kids who you're up at 7, they've been up since 6, and they get up and they're cranking, and I got to get going. I get that's why I realized, okay, you got to start slow. So I just said, if I could do 5 minutes a day for 5 days for 5 weeks, what will that produce? And I found by the end of that, I was doing 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week, and I just didn't stop. And so I started doing that. My goal is not to, get through this plan. It's not to, it's not to have some magical experiences. Can I, for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, let the cares of the world slide and let the glory and love of Jesus Christ capture my attention for 5 or 10 minutes? If I've done that, that's going to carry through my day. And over time, over 40 something years, that starts to become part of who you are. So devotions are always long-term thinking, like exercise. Any great discipline is about the long term, not about the short term.
What's a mistake that you see a lot of fathers making right now?
I think that there's always versions of fatherhood that sort of, and it's not just this generation, but I think it's sort of where you kind of vacillate between, I'm kind of removed, I don't, I'm just out here and I provide, I'm the provider, but everything else is kind of mom, we talking about fathers? Yeah. And so you get a dad who feels distant, and the kids, particularly, if he has young daughters where they don't feel connection to him. And then you guys, another side, you flip over, and now you got guys who are not, they're so engaged that they're not standing outside and looking, what's the big picture for my family? Somebody has to be able to, leadership requires somebody to be able to see the big picture and direct. So what I see is guys really struggling with, they want to be outside, so they're just the big picture guy, but they don't really engage well, or they're so engaged, they're that they don't see the big picture, and they get emotionally embroiled in what's going on, and now they're caught up in whatever drama is taking place. So I think that's an issue I see with dads, and I think it used to not be an issue because very few dads when I was growing up were engaged. Now we have much more engaged fathers, but I don't think they engage all the time with the idea that, but I have a different responsibility. Somebody here has to lead. I've got to lead. That means I have to be able to make decisions and not simply support the decisions that are getting made around me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one for dads these days.
What's one mistake you made when you were a dad?
I think early on we were probably too strict in discipline. And I say that to say, and I think we had a little too much emphasis on the fact that discipline produces, and we spanked, right? You guys all got spanked. You less than others.
I got less. I got the least.
You got less, yeah. And part of that's because you got managed.
That's why I'm the best.
Yeah. No.
That's why I'm in therapy.
No, the reason you didn't get spanked as much is because you had 3 older sisters who were basically managing you.
Yeah.
Because their goal was...
I got fully mommed.
Well, I think you got mommed, but you also got... If you weren't behaving, it created challenges for them.
They punished me, yeah.
Well, they punish you, but they also just manage you. If you needed something, they would give it for you. If you you never had to fight for those things.
Yeah.
So you just got managed. And so we'd only get it when they couldn't manage you anymore. But I think we had an over-realized sense that, and I don't think we were outrageous with this, but I just think we had, in trying to be consistent, I think we tried to use discipline too much. I would say, and I don't regret it. But I think a better balance between discipline and punishment for transgression and reasoning through things would have been better.
What's something principled that you're looking back on and you're thinking, yeah, I think I did that right. I think I got this right about parenting.
Yeah. The big one the big one was a very specific event where I was having coffee with a guy who had 3 daughters like I did, who were older than mine, and I was just asking him, "So what are you doing now with your daughters and as a father?" And because I was really like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't get this part. And he said, I think I've learned to make sure that their relationship with their mom isn't doesn't deteriorate because of as they grow up and become teenagers, there's just more tension, because really, if you think about it, like a mom knows what a girl is dealing with.
Mhm.
Like she knows the 13-year-old, she knows the 14 because she was there. And so she may have fears coming out of that. She may have, I want to make sure this doesn't happen to you. I'm going to make sure you do this. And so, and a kid's going to tend to rebel against their same gender parent more likely. And so I think there was tension, and I was becoming the kind of kids, the girls would come to me. And so they'd come to me, and I would sort of be the safe zone. It wasn't, I don't want to portray it as heavy conflict, but it was just tension between teenage girls and their mom. And he said, you need to make sure that the girls have a good relationship with their mother. And that was something about that was one of those, okay, this is God speaking to me. Outside the Bible, this is, listen to this. And so I went home and I talked to Jill about it, and I was like, I think I need to make a change here. I need to change my role. Rather than being the arbiter of who's right and who's wrong, I need to make sure that my goal is, if you're in conflict, that I help you resolve the conflict and I help your relationship. But I recognize that a lot of parents don't have they don't have an idea that they're really 2 years behind whatever their kids are. The kids might be 13, but the parent tends to relate to them as if they're 11. They just can't stay up with how they're growing, particularly in the teenage years. And so parents are just constantly behind in terms of understanding their kids, if not their actual age or their emotional age, their aspirational age. A kid who's 13 does not want to think about being a 13-year-old. They want to think about being a 15-year-old, but you're acting like they're 11-year-old. And so then you got a problem. So recognizing you got to keep up with where your parents are, your kids are aspirationally, and then recognize that you've got to move from what I call authority-based parenting to influence-based parenting.
What's the difference between authority and influence?
Well, to me, authority-based parenting is this: I kind of tell you what to do and you do it, and I give you things to do, but we function as, Dad, what should I do? This situation, what should I do? Or should I do this? Should I go here? And that's important. And particularly if a kid is struggling with maturity or is making foolish decisions, you have to keep authority in play. But the nature of a relationship is going to move out of authority whether you want it to or not. And I see a lot of parents who the authority card gets played well beyond when they can actually act on their authority. So then you get the threats. Well, if you do this, boom. But the threats aren't real. They're not substantive because they're not going to act out on them. If you're going to live in this house, you've got a blank. And then the kid doesn't, the young person doesn't, and then the parents don't say, well, I told you I would kick you out, I'm kicking you out. Whatever. It doesn't happen. And so you have this deterioration of respect in the relationship. And so influence-based parenting has to do with, I would like for you to observe my life in such a way that I don't need to tell you what wisdom is. You can observe it, and you can take it for what you want for your situation. And if we're talking, it's not me lecturing. It's you and I in conversation where I'm benefiting from your perspective, and my input has to do with where you really are at, not where I think you should be.
How do I help my kids be emotionally mature?
Maturity it's a function of wisdom. It's not a function of age. What is wisdom? Well, wisdom has a degree of self-control. How do I help my young child with self-control which means an ability to regulate my emotions. I do believe, and I think studies tend to show, and I think the Bible certainly describes, that our emotions have reasons to them. They always do. I'm upset because of something. It's not just an emotion. It has a reason and often has a purpose to it. Why is my child upset with this when the other day they weren't upset with this? It could be they're tired. You always allow for those kind of factors. But even at a young age, our kids have goals and they have agendas. And if they're able to use emotion to accomplish an agenda, and for a young child, the agenda can simply be, I want attention. I want what I want. They don't have the ability to wait. You don't expect a 4-year-old to understand patience, right? That's a complex maturity to understand that. Some people never learn it. But you can teach them self-control. You can say, okay, you might want this, but you're not going to get it. And it's kind of where I feel like some of the parenting these days, we don't like to use the word no. Life is a world of no's. Life is a world of limits. The wise person understands limits and knows how to flourish within limits. And so I think we have to teach our kids in some form, in some way, that life is limits. And right now, one of your limits is you can't understand it, but I'm the parent and you're not. And however I teach that child that lesson, it's important to teach. Because if they go to school, they're going to have to learn that now it's the teacher who is that and you're not. You're never going to be the controller of your own destiny. Your free will, like we said, doesn't exist. You're always limited by something. You're never free to do what you want or get what you want. There's always limits. And so you're trying to do that with a child in an early age so they understand that life is about limits and it's about consequences.
What's one thing I can do to guarantee that my kids turn out okay?
Can't. First of all, how do you define okay? If you have a generic idea of okay, you're never going to, because you're going to always fail in some area that you think should be okay. Is it educationally? Is it vocationally? Is it life partner choices? Is it moral choices? Is it spirituality? You can't guarantee your kid's going to get saved, right? You can't guarantee. One of the mistakes parents make in good churches is they think, well, if I bring my kid to church and I get them into a good youth group, by the time they're at the end of youth group, they should be Christians, because the system is meant to turn out Christians by the time they're 18. There's nothing in the Bible that says that. There's nothing in the Bible that says by sending to a Christian school, they're going to become Christians. There's nothing. There's no guarantees for that. The nature of salvation belongs to God. I think wise parenting tends to put the emphasis on who do I want my child to be, not what do I want them to be. Who as a person. I do want them to come to know Christ because I love Jesus. I love them. I like for them to meet. I don't want to present salvation or coming to Jesus as the answer to my problems. I got him saved. That would be incredibly short-sighted. And also, this is what you learn at my age when I have adult children who are in their late 20s and into their 30s, is the story hasn't been written yet. What if one of you guys went off the rails? Would I now be a failure? If at 50, one of you abandons the faith, would that make me a failure? Some parents, it would. What did I do wrong? My kid's 50 years old and they're not walking with Jesus. That's me. At some point, you're no longer responsible for what happens with your children. When is that time? When do you stop being responsible? So that's why the question of how do I guarantee, you can't, because you have to ask all the questions of yourself about what you mean by okay and what you mean by successful parenting.
What is something that every parent should have as a goal for their kids?
that they would know that we love them dearly, but we love God more.
Mm.
They have to know that. I will not sacrifice following Jesus Christ for you.
Mm. What's the hierarchy of a good dad? Does it come from God first, then what second?
Rather than have it the hierarchy, I'd say at the center of it needs to be love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the center. And in this case, your family is your neighbor. If you've got the center set, you can navigate everything else.
How does a good parent show their kids that they love God more than they love their kids?
Confess sin to your kids
Mm.
when you commit it. Ask for forgiveness. Explain why you need forgiveness. Walk humbly. Try to walk humbly. Demonstrate a love for Christ in your daily life that's tangible to them. Whether that's them knowing you're reading your Bible and they're letting them enough into your life to they see the cost of following Jesus.
Mm.
Don't protect them from some of the cost of following Jesus. So they see it's not an escape.
Mm.
It's a mission. Inviting them into mission.
What's one thing that if every dad were to do that, families would be closer and happier?
Appreciating the environment of the family so you don't have to rely always on events. Just when we're together, just being in the same place, a sense of peace at home, a sense of order at home that isn't like, boy, I can't, when you get to home, these are the rules. But I think that if your home is a place where your kids would want their friends to come, and their friends feel like when I go to your house, it's a good feeling.
Mm.
I think time with is always, in the long run, more valuable than things done.
Mm. Talk to me about, I think you do a great job of, especially as a grandparent, meeting the kids where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times I find myself or even, witnessing other parents or grandparents, they're like, they want the kid to do something that they want.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm really into this activity, this thing. I want you to see the same joy in it that I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like you do a good job of, with each of your grandkids, getting down their level and just trying to understand where they're at. What's your thought process?
I had this distinct experience, and there's actually a picture of it where I came home from work. This is before I was a pastor, and the girls were, probably 5 and 3 at most. The older girls, and I don't think Kelsey was even born yet. And they were playing out in our backyard, and they were playing this game. So I've got my tie on and everything, and I was in real estate, and I come home, and they're just out there. It was a nice afternoon, and Melissa they had this whole fantasy set up where they were like on a desert island or something, and they were fishing for food, and she had a thing. So I come over, and they just flood me with this, and like I've got numbers and I've got stuff on my brain that's not this, and so I'm like, that's an experience every parent and grandparent has.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure where I'm cluing in here, but I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy in, and so she gave me a stick, and we just sat down at this tree, and there's a picture at home of it where we're just both fishing. And I had this revelation at that moment, and I realized the key is a little kid's world is about 3 to 4 feet high, and it's all make-believe. I exist over that world, in the world of reality. If I'm going to engage and if I'm going to enjoy, I have to get down into the 3-foot world where make-believe is the rule. And then I can engage. So there's a real conscious effort I make with particularly the younger kids. What is your 3-year-old world? It's not 3-year-old, it's 3 foot high. It's just in this world, everything is real. And I remember that when I was a kid, when I did superheroes as a kid with a towel like around my neck, ready to choke myself. It was a world that was real to me. And so I think that if, as parents, we can, some people dial back into the childhood where my world doesn't matter to you. I want your world to matter to me. I want to live in that. But while I'm here, we're in that 3-foot world, and that's where we're going to function. And whatever rules are in play, the rules I follow in that world. So I think if you do that, then it can become enjoyable, and you can actually engage, and you can become part of the creative process without taking it over.
The perfect illustration of this, Lego Movie.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they.
It's exactly right.
The CEO bad guy, Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
And when he's the bad guy, he's this guy that's dominating. These are the things we have to build. This is what we have to. We're going to remove all this stuff. Yeah. You can't have this with this.
And that's his dad, right?
Ends up being his dad.
Ends up being his dad.
And at the very end of the movie, he comes in and he's like, they create this whole world together on this Lego table because it's no longer about dad's creation. It's about.
That's exactly the point.
What's the hardest part about getting old?
Oh, wow. For me, anyway, the funny thing is just not thinking about dying. That's a daily thought for me, which I think should be for everybody. But, you would think, man, fear of death. I don't fear that at all. I fear pain, and I fear certain kinds of infirmity. And I say fear using that word, that word meaning that if you want to know where my fears can go, it's to those things. It used to be when you're younger, you sort of, I'm going to leave and there's going to be so much left behind that I didn't get to, or my kids, will they be okay? All those kind of things. Well, as you get older, you'll miss everybody, but you sort of realize my purpose has been largely fulfilled. Whatever I've done, I've done. This has been my life. My life has been lived. I got more time, but I think I just read something the other day, the average lifespan today of an American male is like 72 and a half. And I'm 5 years from there. So now I think, so I'm not being morbid about it. I'm just saying I think that you sort of recognize that, and certainly if I was thinking career-wise, I'm closing up the career path. So all that stuff, and I feel my kids have done well. Whatever I was going to give them, they have taken, and they're using it well, and they're grandkids, and I would miss everybody, but I don't live with that tragedy if I died. So and if I put aside the fears of the things that could make life hard, the two things are, I think I want to finish well. I don't want at this point to do something or start believing something that would take me away from what I've lived my life for. So I think about that. I think about finishing well. And that also means finishing fruitfully, not just kind of like, I'm done. I've done the service stuff. I've done the ministry stuff. It's all about me now. That'd be horrible. It is the recognition. I think more and more I start to think about, I was talking to a friend of mine. We were visiting a friend of ours in the hospital this past week, who's a little older than me, who's got some health issues. And we were just, even in the hospital, we're talking to him about it. He says, yeah, man, things just start to accumulate. Right. And I was talking to my friend who's in his early 50s, I think, at this point. And we're talking about when you're in your 40s and you get a diagnosis, something, you think, okay, if it's not terminal, I'll get through it and I'll still have all this. But I started thinking about, you know what? The thing I get is probably going to take me out. Maybe not right away, but I'm not, if I get through it, I'm not going to get through it and be better.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still on the downward slide. I'm just not gonna, there's not going to be this at the end of anything.
Should more people seek to leave money or leave a legacy?
Well, everybody has a legacy. Not everybody has money. So, if you don't have money, don't leave debt.
Yeah. What do you mean by everybody has a legacy?
Well, everybody's going to leave something behind. Legacy is not necessarily positive. We want a positive legacy, but legacy can be negative. Legacy can be broken relationships, multiple marriages, unfulfilled promises. That can be your legacy. I think what you're describing a positive legacy is in your question. Well, first of all, one of the dilemmas you face is, and this, certainly someone with me, and as I'm thinking about retirement or retirement finances, is there's this balance for someone my age of how much do I need to keep in case I live a long time, and how much do I want to give away so that at the end of the time I'm just not dumping cash into somebody's life. Because by the time I die, let's say I live till 90, whatever. My mom lived till 93, and so let's say I live till 90. At that point, you guys may not need the money, but now you do. Kids going to college, getting married, those kind of things will be things that, at least for the older grandkids, those will be things that are needs now. And so you're debating, and your financial advice is, well, you need to have this, and so this, and also I want to give to the kingdom. How much do I? So I'm trying to work with somebody to help me. So finances, I think, is legacy, because you're trying to figure out what happens with your stuff, and you don't want to leave kids a mess. If they feel like, I've got a friend of mine who's dealing with parents who've recently passed away, and they just left a mess. And their legacy is decisions never made that would have helped their kids. So I think you have to manage the money part. Money is about managing. Legacy is about living. Legacy is curating your life in such a way that it speaks ultimately what you want it to say.
How many funerals have you done?
100, 150, something like that over time. I guess I've done about that many.
What's something you've learned from doing 150 funerals?
Here's a crazy thing. The size of the crowd coming to a funeral is a very interesting phenomenon. Obviously, if somebody dies sooner, they'll tend to have a larger. I mean, if they don't, it's tragic. If they're in their 40s or 50s and they have nobody at the funeral, it's in their 80s, 90s. I mean, my father-in-law, when he passed away, he had a big crowd. But when my mother-in-law passed away, she had outlived almost everybody, and it was just a family service. And so there's a little bit of longevity of life. I think there's also, you just hear, I hear when people share about the person, the difference between a memorial service or funeral with true professing believers and nominal or non-believers is striking. in terms of what people say and where they attach their hope and what they remember. I've been to funerals where the person who died was obviously well loved, but they didn't know Christ and nobody there knew Christ. So the things they pulled out as memories were, I used to love the way he'd always buy the beer, or he'd always, or she would, the way this or that. And you just feel like that's the sum total of your life. Whereas if someone who's walked with Jesus, and when people start talking about them, you realize these are people whose lives have been changed by you. For some people, you've entertained them, or you've been part of their life experience. But for other people, when they're talked about, I remember this one, a woman had to she died of Alzheimer's during COVID. Couldn't do her funeral. She had basically been in a home for several years and had really gotten out of touch with a lot of things. But she's just a dear saint in the Lord and had just had a life of fruitful care and ministry to people. And finally after COVID, we had the service, and the people in the home she'd lived with, she had not been there for 6 or 7 months, and they see people die all the time. They came in droves. These are people who worked there. And they started talking about, now here's a woman who barely could remember her own name, but she'd stand at her door and she would just greet people and tell them that God loved them. And up until the week before she died. And those people profoundly affected. And then you have on top of that, the other people who've come from all places in her life who've said, yeah, that's what we experienced when she was in her 20s or 30s. And you realize that's what you learn. You learn of the value of someone's life in the world they've lived in. And it's tragic when they don't have a lot of value left behind.
What do you want people to say about you?
Gosh. I'd like in some form for people to be able to express in some way, I felt the Lord loved me through him in a way that I didn't feel from anybody else. Not better, just unique. And whatever that uniqueness was my life. But at the end of the day, the uniqueness of my life was the packaging of the message. It wasn't the message. That's probably what I would want in some form. And I plan my funeral all the time. Every time I'm at a funeral, I plan it. I don't want to do it that way. That's not the way I would do that slideshow. In fact, here's something that may freak you out. I actually have already picked out pictures that I think should go in my slideshow. Not that they're the only ones, but I've curated my photos thinking, so if I die,
there's a folder on your computer that says,
just me, but I've only put pictures in there that.
Does anybody know? Does mom have this folder?
You would find it because you have to go through my crap anyway. But I just thought I'm not putting any picture in here that I don't want in my funeral. That's what reading history does for you, right there.
Yeah. Is there after talking to so many people that die, is there a consistent regret that you hear them say?
Well, I have the privilege of talking to a lot of people who don't have regrets, who've lived well. I don't live in a world where I have a lot of people who have meaningful regrets. Everybody's going to have a I wish kind of thing. I wish I'd have done this. Nobody ever says I wish I'd have traveled more. Their regrets tend to be relational. I wish I'd have restored that relationship. I wish I'd have shared more about who Jesus was with people. I wish I would have been more thoughtful toward others. Regrets are almost always relational. They're never accomplishment oriented, and they're never experience oriented. And I think I think I could say that with a degree of confidence that is based on historical study, because you end up watching how people die in history. I think if anybody in our culture, because we're a culture that is so fearful of death, that does everything it can to not think about it, to recognize that if you live long enough, what you did or where you went will not be something you think that much of. Who you were with and how you affected them will be.
And with this, I like you said a long time ago, you have this take on what true friendship actually is.
Mm-hmm.
What is true friendship?
I'm still working on that, but my basic premise is somebody who would make effort to get to your funeral. That's my definition of friendship. But I have to qualify that because there's people I consider friends I didn't go to their funeral. So, so I have to think, well, I can't, that's kind of hypocritical. The interesting thing about friendship is the Bible doesn't speak a whole lot about it. Friendship is in my mind, is in the category of results, not goals. If you do other things well, the result will be friendship. Whenever someone sets out friendship as a goal, they end up importing a lot of self-expectation into it. This is what it needs to be for me. You tell kids. I used to tell you guys in various ways growing up. The way you get friends is to be a friend, right? People have to want to be your friend, because kids live with who are my friends and all that kind of stuff, and I don't have a best friend and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is. There's just the friendship is a fruit. It's not a goal. And so to be a good friend is how do I love others well? How do I know my space in their life? Am I in that space where I should be? How do I give people space? I can't be jealous. Jealousy destroys friendship as it destroys love. So Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13, love's not jealous. Does that keep a record of wrongs? Basically, if you do 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8, you will have an abundance of friends and very few enemies. So I think that's what you do. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8 is probably the definition of friendship. The funny thing about it is I always tell people, the problem is it starts with love is patient and kind, and I hardly ever get out of that gate. Right? I can't even get to the other stuff because you're driving me nuts.
Yeah.
And I'm running out of patience. So.
Yeah, I don't even envy you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I can't even get to envy. Can't even get to being jealous because I'm stuck here. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you. I wanted to do this because it's. I often, when I speak about you, I say that because people always get confused by when I say my dad's my best man, and when I say like you're my best friend, that concept doesn't really make sense to a lot of people.
Same with me.
Yeah,
when I say it.
And I think that the reason I wanted to do this was because I wanted to highlight why. And I think there's a wisdom that you have that isn't haughty, it isn't prideful, it isn't arrogant, and it doesn't force your opinions on me. In fact, I was just telling somebody yesterday, I was just saying my dad stopped giving me advice when I was 15 years old. I can only remember one time in my life that you've told me to do something. And it was a couple years ago when I sent you a picture of a empty bourbon bottle, and I said, I drank this in the last week, jokingly. And then you met with me and you said, I've seen men have their lives destroyed by this. Don't be one of those men. And that was the only time I remember in my life you ever said don't do something. You've always been someone that says, what do you think about this? Okay, it sounds like here are the 3 paths to follow. Which one do you want to take? And I think you have a wisdom that I haven't encountered in any other people, and I've interviewed impressive people. I've met many impressive people. I've shook hands with some of the most successful people on the planet Earth, and I've yet to meet someone that has an ounce of your wisdom. And I'm grateful for you. And I want to say that, like, I still, I'm 28, but I've said it for the past 10 years. I'm like, I would love to be half the man you are. And this isn't the same as our scotch and whiskey and music time, but I do like the idea of capturing my questions and your answers, because I think there's something unique about you in this context that comes so effortlessly, and it's how you relate, like who you've been and how you've related in this kind of context is how you relate in our family. And I think that's, in a world of pontificators and platform builders and people with egos and people with pride and people with an arrogant confidence that demands to be seen, I think there's something enormously respectable and powerful in someone like you that's faithfully done something for 45 years and faithfully existed and faithfully lived out a life as a believer and as a pastor and as a father and as a grandfather for that period of time. And so I just want to say I'm very grateful for you. And thanks for trusting me.
Sure. Yeah, well, it is trust, right?
to try to not disqualify you.
I was in the back of my mind. I thought this could go really bad, and then we would be having another "don't do this" conversation.
All right, love you.
Love you too.
All right.